Hello everyone, thank you for watching my first YouTube video. I never actually envisaged myself starting one of these up. I'm not the biggest fan of YouTube outside of watching music videos, but yeah, here I am. Most people that come here to watch this will probably have come from my Facebook page, so you'll know who I am. For people that don't know who I am, my name's Seán Hogan. I'm an author from northwest London, a place called Kilburn. The reason I've set the channel up is because as a self-published author, you need to try and use social media to the best of your ability. Basically, my friend said I've led an interesting life, so I probably have things to talk about that people may be interested in. As I said just now, I'm not the biggest fan of YouTube. The reason for that is I think, and it's not just YouTube, it's social media in general. I think there's a big outrage culture going on, especially at the moment, and I'm not a fan of that at all. I think that this outrage culture leads to people neglecting issues that are far more important. So yeah, on my channel, while I will talk about social issues, I'm not going to be getting mad angry about things and, inciting people to riot. That's not really the way I am. So yeah, the channel will basically be just me, talking about what inspired my books and why I write and, other things that come up. I'll post videos as inspiration comes to me. For my first video, I'm going to just basically introduce myself, and talk about how I ended up becoming an author. I also want to apologise if my eyes keep flicking this way because I'm looking at the camera and I can see my face here. I keep looking over. Yeah, so apologies if it looks like my eyes are a bit mad. So the first video, what I'm going to do is just introduce myself and, talk about what led me to ending up writing as a living. As I said before, I grew up in Kilburn, northwest London. For people that don't know Kilburn, it's heavily associated with Irish people. Probably not as much now as it was, but in the 50s, 60s, 70s, a lot of Irish people moved over and ended up in northwest London, especially around Kilburn, Willesden, Harlesden, them sort of places. My mum was born in London, but she moved over to Ireland when she was young, and then she came back to Kilburn when she was 16. So that's obviously how I ended up in Kilburn. Kilburn is one of them places where some people will say, "Oh, it's a bit dodgy around there." It's not anywhere near as bad as people make it out to be. I'm not going to say it's paradise, but it's my home, and I sometimes think its reputation is undeserved. Over the years, it's become more multicultural. Certainly when I was growing up, you actually saw it become more multicultural. When I was in primary school, I'd say 90% of the people in my class had Irish surnames. And then as time went on, that started to change. I think Kilburn being a multicultural place had a big influence on me, because as a child I used to love reading. I loved to write as well, and I always had these mad dreams of travelling. And I had a very good friend of mine was from Sudan, and he always used to say, "Yeah, I'm going to take you to Sudan. I'm going to take you to Sudan." Like, there's no way my mother would have let me go to Sudan, but as a child, your imagination starts to run wild, and you're thinking, yeah, I wonder what it is like there, You know, I had other friends from all over the place, and you know, that was something that really sort of triggered my imagination, and you know, one of the reasons why I did end up traveling later on in life. I didn't have a particularly out of the ordinary childhood. I was just a kid who was obsessed with playing football. I used to spend hours in the park kicking the ball around. There was no one to play with. I kick it around myself. I remember one of my teachers saying to my mother I had a really vivid imagination. At the time, I didn't know what vivid meant. And I look back now, I think, yeah, because I used to sit on this old computer that we had. It was like an Amstrad, and it had a green screen. There was no colours on it. And you could type on it, but you could only type about 100 words, I think. Might even have been less than that. And I used to sit on it, and I used to type these little stories out. And then you'd have to delete it, and then you'd have to type something else, but you couldn't save it. So once you switched it off, or you delete it, whatever, it was gone. So yeah, I look back and think, yeah, I knew what that specific teacher was talking about. Yeah, my childhood wasn't anything spectacular in the sense that any kind of big thing happened. I went to a very good secondary school in southwest London. When I was about 14, that was when I suppose things started to happen that would, you know, define my later life. I started hanging around with the wrong people, and just, I don't know, I changed very quickly. I was a very quiet child, shy, never got into trouble in school. And then when I was 14, that changed. Like, I didn't get in trouble even later in school. I just didn't go. But, you know, I started smoking weed, and I was drinking, and there was, I look back at it now, and I don't see a trigger that started it. I don't ever remember thinking, oh, I really need to try that. That didn't happen. Someone gave me a joint one day, and I smoked it, and nothing happened. And I was sitting there thinking, this is rubbish, man. And I think it was a couple of weeks later, I was sitting in my room, and I had a couple of beers, and I had some hash. And anyway, I very badly made a spliff, because I couldn't even roll up at the time. And I ended up smoking this really bent spliff. And that was when it hit me, and I was like, yeah, I like this. I can still remember it clearly. I was like standing up in my room, and I was walking backwards and forwards because this buzz, it was like, yeah, this is amazing. I wouldn't say that things spiraled from there, because they didn't. It was more of a slower process. Strangely, I could always drink more than my friends. Even when I started drinking, I had a tolerance. I don't know where it came from, but, you know, I could drink far more than they could. They'd be on the floor, and I'd be looking at them thinking, what are these fucking idiots doing? So yeah, I did reasonably well in my GCSEs, considering that I didn't go to school that much, and I never really revised for them. You know, I ended up passing all of them, and then I went to sixth form. And I think that's where things kind of started to spiral out of control. For me, at that time, all I lived for was the weekend. And I know that's not something that is unique to me, because, you know, as a teenager, that's what teenagers do. I remember sitting in classes on Friday, and the buzz of just thinking about going out and getting wrecked was just, you know, I can't describe it. You know, that's what I live for. I live for the weekend and getting as fucked as I could. Not to say that I didn't during the week, because I did as well, but, the weekend was special. Um, Me and two other friends, one of which is probably watching, so shout out to you, bruv. Um, we just all we did every weekend was just get ruined. Um, I ended up leaving sixth form when I think I was 16. I'd have been 17. Um, I hated my school, um, especially the sixth form. We didn't have any freedom at all. Even though I do look back at it and understand why, people at that school got good results, and they got good results because they were stricter, because, you didn't get away with as much as you did at college. Um, so after that, I went to college the following year. And like at this point, I was drinking quite heavily. Um, I wasn't going to college all the time. I was, this getting fucked was basically taking over my life. And it was when I was around 18, I think it might have been just before 18 or just after, I can't actually remember. That was when I knew I was physically addicted to alcohol. I remember waking up one morning and I was ill. My hands were shaking. I was throwing up. And something told me in my head, if you don't have a drink, you'll be alright. This will all go away. So off I went down to the shop, and I couldn't even walk properly. Because I drank so much, your sort of your motor neuron abilities sort of they go away, and it's weird. It's kind of hard to walk when you're feeling it, when you're withdrawing. Even getting down to the shop was an ordeal. So got to the shop, I bought my beer, I came home and I drank it, and I was alright. And that's when I knew this is a big problem. I am physically addicted to alcohol. Well, I say a big problem. It's strange because, and I think people that have been addicted to substances might tell you the same thing, is that you almost buzz off it. Because your life is so centered around getting ruined, you have this perverse buzz that, this physical addiction is some kind of achievement. And I know to most people that will sound ridiculous, but to me, because my life was so centered around substance abuse, that's, it was a buzz, being physically addicted to alcohol. So yeah, after that, I ended up dropping out of college. I didn't sit my A levels. I had been offered a place at Manchester University to read history and philosophy. Because I didn't sit my A levels, I couldn't go. I lost out on a lot. And life was. I didn't have any ambition at the time. There was nothing that I never thought, I want to do this or I want to do that. The only ambition I had was when I was out of my head. And I'll be sitting on my sofa and I'll be coming up with all these mad dreams of things that I wanted to do. Like I wanted to go travelling, or, I wanted to make money, or I wanted to do this, I wanted to do that. But they were just drunken, drug-induced dreams that were never going to be aspired to, because I wasn't physically capable of doing it. Because the next morning, I was going to wake up and I'd be ill, and I'd have to think about, how am I going to stop myself from being ill? That was it. And then you just repeat the cycle over and over and over and over again. This just continued for years. I think I was about 21. I was 21 or 22, and I was on a train can't remember where I was going. And I thought I was having a heart attack. All down the side of my chest, down my arm, I was having this crazy pain. And I was thinking, I'm dying. So I got off the train anyway, and I went into, there was a Boots outside the train station. I went into the man was just looking at me like, what is this guy on? And I said to him, like, I need someone to check me out. And he was like, oh, I'll just call you an ambulance. So he called me an ambulance, and they came and they took me straight to hospital, basically. Got to hospital, and I had this doctor. I'll never forget this doctor. And he was prodding me, and he was poking me, and like he was looking for needle marks on my arms and my legs. And I've never actually done heroin, but he kept saying to me, like, I know you're a heroin addict. I'm like, I'm not. He goes, why is it opiates in your body? Because at the time I was taking a lot of codeine as well. So, I love the NHS. The NHS saved my life, but I will never ever forget that doctor and the way that he treated me. So anyway, they put me into a ward, and I had to be detoxed. I think I was in there for about 10 days. But during that 10 days, the doctor come and see me and said to me, if you keep drinking the way you are, you're not going to last 2 years. So the most I'll give you is 2 years. Like, for most people, that are, something, it would trigger something in your head to say, this is not good. For me, it didn't really do anything. I was just, I don't know how to describe it. It was just almost like it was a normal conversation. When someone's telling you got 2 years to live, you should be shocked. For me, it was like, oh, fair enough. So anyway, I was detoxed and I was released again. And I pretty much started drinking straight away. And I go back to that feeling of the first time that I knew I was having physical withdrawals. It was the same kind of thing. It was just this perverse buzz that you were fucking yourself up so much that it was killing you. And I'm sure there's a lot of addicts that can relate to that. And for people that aren't addicts, like, it must be really hard to relate to that. But that's how it felt. To me, that was like a badge of honour. So yeah, he gave me 2 years. I was 23 when I caught this really rare infection. Now at this time I was really on a mad one. I was popping whatever I could. I was drinking ridiculous amounts. I could get through a couple of bottles of vodka a day easy. And at this point, my reality and things that were happening when I was drunk and things that I was thinking about, even hallucinations, were starting to become blurred. I couldn't always tell the difference between when I was tripping my nut off and reality. Even to this day, there are things that I'm not sure if that happened or not. I have these memories of being in places, but I couldn't for sure say that really happened. I don't know whether that was just some drug-induced madness. So I caught this rare infection. My neck swelled up. It was out there. I looked kind of like the Elephant Man. I couldn't swallow. I could swallow a little bit because I was still drinking vodka. And I was crushing up codeine. And I'd drink the vodka I'd put the codeine in the vodka and I'd drink it. Most of it came out my nose. Which is just an example, you're that ill, yet you're still so desperate to try and, give in to the cravings for what your body's craving. Anyway, I woke up one Saturday morning and I looked in the mirror. It's like, I've got to go to hospital. So I went to hospital. They took one look at me, and I had like 3 or 4 doctors poking me and prodding me. After that, I don't really remember much. I ended up in intensive care for 10 days. What the infection was is there was like abscesses underneath my neck, where they'd gone septic. So they had to operate on me 4 times within that 10 days. It was touch and go whether I was going to survive. I still have the scar on my neck from that. I was in a bad way. I ended up, when I finally came out of hospital after 6 weeks, I weighed 9 stone. I was like a stick. And again, the mad thing was, because I had a hole in my throat, once that closed up, I just carried on doing what I was doing. There was no inclination to stop. I knew that I'd gotten ill because of the drink and drugs. I had no immune system. When I went into the hospital, they actually tested me for HIV because my immune system was so low. They just couldn't understand it. So yeah, I came out, carried on doing what I was doing. Came towards the end of that year, and I was weak. Like, if you think this has been going on heavy for maybe 6 or 7 years, it takes a toll on your body. It really does. I'd go to the doctor. They tell me that my liver was enlarged, and you can't keep doing this, and it was going in one ear and out the other. I got to the end of that year, got to Christmas Eve, and I remember this day so clearly. I'd actually been off the drink. I started going to AA, and for people that know me know that AA is really not my thing. So I'd been off the drink for about 10 days, and it was Christmas, and I thought, there's no way I'm getting through Christmas without having a drink. So off I went to Tesco's, got myself 1.5 litres of vodka, and that was when I knew something had changed, because I put it down on the coffee table and I sat and I looked at that bottle of vodka for 1.5 hours. And I didn't want to drink it. I eventually succumbed to it because I knew that, if I wasn't drinking, I'd have been moody over Christmas. It would have just ruined everyone's Christmas. So I drank that bottle that night or that day, and my tolerance was so high, I knew exactly what I was doing after drinking that. But I knew that at that point that I'd broken emotionally. I knew that I didn't want to do it anymore. It's hard to explain to people that aren't addicts. That there's a perception in the media, especially that addicts are all lazy people that sponge off the state, and yeah, to some extent that is true. However, you don't do that for fun. You don't get fucked every single day for fun. You don't drink 2 litres of vodka a day for fun. People don't take heroin because it's fun. It takes away all your feelings. There's always an underlying issue. And I think that's something that society needs to come to terms with. There's this desire to punish rather than help. And I think addiction gets swept under the carpet. It's kind of the thing you don't talk about. Because there's not enough research, I think, done into it, and there's not enough understanding as to the sociological reasons behind drinking. I'm a firm believer that the surroundings that you grow up in, have a massive influence on your life and the way that you lead your life. And I think that is something that needs to be looked at, and I just think, different types of treatment need to be looked at. So yeah, I carried on drinking over that Christmas, and it was probably the 2nd or 3rd of January, I phoned up the local drug and alcohol team, and by some miracle, the manager picked up the phone, and she made an appointment for me there straight away to go and see her. I'd been to drug and alcohol teams before. Once, because I was sober, the guy just, pretty much fobbed me off. So I knew I was going there that day. I was gonna, make sure that something happened. So I went in there without having a drink. I was withdrawing when I was in there. I was just a complete and utter mess. But that did the trick. It shouldn't have done. Everyone should be entitled to help. Again, it comes down to a lack of understanding, especially for people that work in. And I'm not saying everyone that works in these teams. I'm saying some people that work in these teams don't seem to have enough insight into addiction to be working there. So yeah. Anyway, she said to me, "I think rehab would be a good option for you." I was like, "Yeah, go on then. I'll have a bit of that." I had no idea what rehab entailed. To me, it was just like, because I'd broken emotionally, I'd started to realise the physical effects as well, and it was, then it was like, I don't want to die. I don't. I want to do something. I want to go out and live my life. So yeah, I did a detox about 3 or 4 weeks later, and I had to keep drinking because you can't just stop drinking alcohol because it's dangerous. You can have seizures, and alcohol detoxes can kill you. And then a month after that, I went to rehab. With my bag, all my belongings, went off on a train down to the middle of nowhere in Hampshire. It was literally in the middle of nowhere. I think the nearest town was like 16 miles away. If you wanted to leave, you had a big problem getting home. I'm not going to say too much about rehab, mainly because I always I respect the people that I was in there with, and I don't feel it's right to give away too much about what happened and what people said. Obviously, the confidentiality behind it, but also I think just personally, I don't, I just don't. It's not something that I like to talk about. Not because I didn't enjoy it. Or enjoy is the wrong word when you go to rehab, but I spent 9 months in residential rehab. Altogether, I spent 14 months. The first 9 months, I was you locked away from society. Basically, you very rarely go out. You don't see anyone. You can get 1 10-minute phone call every night if you're quick enough to get your name down on a piece of paper. It's very structured. You wake up, I think it was 7 o'clock in the morning, and then for the rest of the day, you'd be doing chores. Like, you'd either be cleaning the house up, working in the kitchen, or working out in the grounds, doing gardening or whatever. But it was set up so as to make sure you're always doing something. When we weren't doing them things, obviously group therapy, there was a lot of group therapy. And that was my life for 9 months. It was based on cognitive behavioural therapy, and addressing your behaviours and how your behaviour and your inability to deal with your feelings leads to you drinking. So I was indoctrinated with that for 9 months. After that, there was a small house next to the main rehab, and you could go out during the day. And then after that, I moved to Portsmouth, which was the final part of it, where you were basically out in the community, but you still had the support to go back to in the evenings or during the day whenever you needed it. So yeah, I was in there for 14 months altogether. I came out in April or early May. I can't remember the exact date, in 2008. Now, when you spent probably 10 years getting out of your nut, you don't develop emotionally, and suddenly you find yourself back in society, and you like, it's frightening. It's incredibly frightening, because it's like being a 14-year-old at the time I was 25-year-old, or 26, I can't remember, 25-year-old's body. And you have to learn how to deal with people. You have to learn how to deal with your emotions. You have to, feelings. And because you've been in a rehab for the prior 14 months, and your life was so structured, also the rehab was based on confrontation as well, which meant people would confront you on your behaviours. Let me turn the light on because it's getting a bit dark in here. Oops, no, that's not very good, is it? Alright, carry on. Sorry if it's a bit dark, but anyway, yeah. So I had to deal with all that. Around the end of 2008, I was given the opportunity to go to India through a British government scheme that sent young people to places with underprivileged children. At first, they weren't sure they wanted to take me, obviously, because of my background. I wasn't that long out of rehab. I hadn't even been clean 2 years at that point. And I look back now and think, that must have taken some balls to do it. But for me, that's what I'd always wanted to do that. I remember as a kid, I used to pretend I was sick so I could go to the nurse's room and do this puzzle that was an atlas of the world. Sorry, not an atlas, a map. It was a jigsaw map. And I used to pretend to be sick so I could go and do it. I was obsessed with wanting to see what the world was about. So, given the opportunity to go away and do something like that, to me it was amazing. But then it kind of went cold because no one contacted me, and I thought, well, they're not going to let me go in December. And then I got a phone call and said, yeah, okay, you can go as long as you behave yourself, which I was going to behave myself. So yeah, January 2009 off, I went to India. It was while I was in India that I started to write again. When I'd been using and drinking, I had written sporadically, but it was just the ramblings of a madman, basically. I recently found a notepad, and God knows why I still got it, and I read it, and yeah, it was complete nonsense. So yeah, while I was in India, I started to write again, about my experiences and the things that I was doing over there. We were working in these schools that were up in the Himalayan mountains, and it was amazing. For me, seeing the Himalayan mountains was the buzz of it was better than any drug, any booze that I've ever, drunk, taken, whatever. You just can't compare to seeing something that you've aspired your whole life to try and get to somewhere like that, and actually seeing it is just incredible. I spent about 3 months there, came home again, and I was like, now what do I do? I didn't really have any direction. A lot of my friends had gone into therapy or whatever. I didn't want to go into therapy. It just wasn't me. It wasn't what I wanted to be about. For me, getting clean was going and living my life. And I think when you're in recovery, it's quite easy to define your life by you being an addict. And I was absolutely set on not letting that happen to me. You know, I even now I won't say the words I'm an addict. I don't like saying it. To me, addiction was a part of my life that's past. But you know, I'm 11 and a half years clean now, and so let me just turn the lamp on again. Better. Okay, that's a bit better. I'm 11 and a half years clean, and like I say, addiction was a part of my life that happened. It's gone. Don't get me wrong. I'm aware. I know only too well, were I ever to drink again, were I ever to smoke a spliff again, I would fall back into that madness. But I think because for most people that most of their lives, especially most of their adult lives, has been defined by addiction, that they let it define them later on, you know, after they've got clean. And I think that, you know, people just early into recovery, okay, that's fine. But as you go on, you need to kind of find yourself and, you know, find out more about yourself. And don't let that label, you know, affect the rest of your life. So yeah, I decided I was going to try and go back to India, and I actually managed to get a job back in India. So off I went. This time I went on my own. The previous time I'd gone with a group, flying into Mumbai. If anyone's ever been there knows what kind of a madness goes on. And then off I went into the middle of nowhere in India. Like, it was the middle of summer, it's 48 degrees. And unfortunately the school was a bit weird. People there were odd. Headmaster didn't know what he was doing, and there was one American guy that was with me, and he was just a weirdo, and I ended up just like, I don't want to do this, you know. I just want to go home. There was no enjoyment in it. I remember one night I was there. I wanted to eat chicken, and like getting the chicken was like doing a drug deal. Like, this guy was knocking on my door, and he's like, "I heard you want some chicken." I was like, "Yeah, I can get it for you." And then for the next week, it was all like secret squirrel. He was like calling me into these rooms and like whispering to me and winking at me, and like, it was madness. He ended up getting the chicken. It wasn't even that nice. It was the skinniest chicken I've ever seen. So yeah, back home again for a year. Yeah, it was about a year. I worked in a warehouse doing picking and packing. And then I had the opportunity to go to China. People always ask me why China. At the time I didn't know. I just wanted to go away. That was all I wanted to do. I just wanted to go away. I was writing during that year, you know, and I suppose it was during that time I started up a blog. You know, and people were reading it and saying, you know, you write really well. And I think that was probably when it clicked that, you know, I can write. When I was at school, I had an English teacher, and he was always putting me down. No matter what I did, it wasn't right, and you know, that massively knocked my confidence, especially when it came to writing. You know, with an English teacher. So yeah, during that year, as I started to write more and people were reading what I was writing and you know, saying it was good. You know, I was writing about my experiences in India. The thought of writing a book had not crossed my mind at all at that point. So yeah, off I went to China. When I went to China, I only thought I was going to be there for 6 months. Like, in my head, I had these ideas of travelling all around the world, and I bought all these Lonely Planet guides, rough guides, and all these books. Like, I was going all over the gaff. I was only staying in China for 6 months. I ended up staying in China for 7 years. China in itself could be a single video, having stayed there for so long, obviously I like China. I loved living there. I lived in a place called Chengdu, which is in Sichuan, in the southwest of China. They're famed for their spicy food. I love spicy food. While I was there, I taught English. I lived in a small town for about 6 months, which was madness. I lived with this Canadian guy that I think had ADHD. Like, he was hyperactive. People don't know me will tell you that I'm, pretty laid back. And this guy was buzzing around the apartment all the time. But he was a good guy. But he loved his cycling. He used to go off cycling mad places. He cycled from Thailand all the way up to China. And then when he left, he cycled from China to Pakistan. He phoned me one night and said, I'm staying with nomads tonight. Like, where are you staying with nomads, bruv? He said, I'm in the middle of the desert in Xinjiang, which is like the northwest of China. He said, if I don't phone you tomorrow, you need to phone the police. I was like, okay. Yeah, that was the kind of guy Matt was. But Matt, if you ever watch this, get in touch. Living in that small town was just like, it was like being a celebrity. Every time you walked out the door, someone would say, hello, hello, hello. A lot of them, their English didn't extend beyond hello, what is your name and how are you? In the end, it got a bit annoying because, you couldn't go out your door without people staring at you. So eventually I moved back to Chengdu. I studied Mandarin in university for 3 years, 3.5 years. About that anyway. I can speak pretty good Mandarin. I wouldn't say I'm fluent because I haven't been, I'm pretty much fluent. At one point I was speaking more Chinese than I did English, which is a little bit rusty at the moment because I don't speak it that much. I actually ended up doing a degree in a Chinese university. While I was in China, I travelled all over Asia. I went to Japan, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, Thailand, Myanmar, Sri Lanka. It was an amazing time, especially when I went backpacking in Southeast Asia. That was like the freedom that I'd always dreamed of. Especially when you've lived that life of addiction where your whole life centers around one thing, that that bottle, it controls everything you do. You can't do anything without knowing where that bottle is, because if you don't have that bottle, you're going to be ill. And in the space of maybe 4 or 5 years, to go from being that controlled to having the amount of freedom I did when I went traveling around Southeast Asia, it was an amazing feeling. I was just like, I think that was when the sense of achievement really hit me. Not that it hadn't before, but at that time, you've gone from that to this. And I think I spent about 4 or 5 months just roaming around Southeast Asia, going to beaches and towns and going to the jungle and whatever. So yeah, I was in China until last year. But it was in 2016 I wrote my first book, The Unwashed. It was, I'll be straight up honest, it was a bit of a punt. As I said before, I had no inclination to write a book, publish a book or whatever, self-publish. I didn't know anything about it. The Unwashed ended up, I think it sold maybe 6,500, 7,000 copies, which, considering was completely unknown, did very little marketing. It was pretty good going. Why did I do it? I say it's a punt, but I'd always loved writing. For me, writing is a form of expression. Some people are it's quite easy for them to express themselves. It's something that I struggle with. When I put things down on paper, it's a form of, it's therapeutic. You know, it's a way of releasing your feelings. Like, you know, it gets it out. And I think sometimes when you write something down, you're more likely to say things that you wouldn't be able to articulate. So I had this idea of writing the Unwashed. I thought, fuck it, I'm going to do it. And I did it. And yeah, I was kind of blown away with, you know, how well it was received. You know, since then I've published another 3 books, which I will talk more about in other episodes. I don't even know what you call these episodes or videos, whatever. Anyway, so yeah, that basically brings me up to now, where I'm living in Ireland. Last year, when I left China, I left to completely concentrate on my writing. I knew full well that it was a risk. It's a risk that is paying off. But, you know, at times it can be a bit lonely, you know, and it's hard work. But, you know, I enjoy it. So yeah, I didn't think this video would go on for 45 minutes. So I hope that people I've kept your attention, I should say. For the next few videos, you know what, I don't even know what I'm going to do yet, but it's probably going to be along the lines of, you know, each of my books and why I wrote them. They're not going to be as long as this, but I thought for my first video it would be best to introduce myself, you know, let people know what I'm about, how I ended up here, you know, my story. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. To all the people that have supported me over the last 2 years since I've published it, thank you. I know I say it on my Facebook page a lot, but I genuinely appreciate the people that, you know, that have given me support. You know, at times it's not easy. You know, you go days without selling books, and you're thinking, what am I doing this for? And a single like or a comment can raise your mood and raise your optimism massively. So thank you. I really do appreciate it. If you've enjoyed this video, please share it with your friends, and subscribe. Also, my stuff on Facebook, like it, comment on it, or share it, whatever. I know I don't always comment on things, I don't always like things, but I don't have an advertising budget. You know, I have a fiver here and there that I can spend on it, but a like makes sure that other people see it that might not see it. Say with a comment, and obviously same with a share. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.